Hi everybody, I'm Zilla Blitz and welcome to the finale of our playthrough with Point Blank Vias for Victory, the World War II card-based tactical game from Lock and Load Publishing and designed by Sean Druelinger. Now, in our previous two episodes, the Canadians have thrown a lot of firepower at the farmhouse that the Germans are holding, but to no effect. Germans are still dug in and time is running out for the Canadians. Can they finally take their objective, or will the Germans carry the day? Let's do a quick recap before we start our final segment of this playthrough. The Germans right now are holding the objective, the farmhouse here, and they've held it for the whole game. Sergeant Dulles and his second line squad are in good shape. They have yet to suffer any casualties. To their disadvantage, though, however, their very important machine gun MG34 has broken, and they'll need to fix it to get it back into action. Now, the Canadians as well have had some good things and some bad things happen to them. This infantry squad is pushed up right next to the farmhouse and stumbled onto a stone building that gives them excellent cover. However, in the process of doing so, they took enemy fire and they're shaken. They're going to have to rally to get back into action, and there's not much time left to do it either. Down here, Sergeant Tremblay and his infantry squad have opened fire 3 times on the farmhouse from this field that they're in. Unable to hit anything, they're still in good shape injury-wise and casualty-wise, but they're sitting still in that clear terrain, and they've got a stream in between them and the farmhouse. More importantly though, however, the Germans win the scenario if they hold it when the timer runs out, and time is ticking down. There's not a lot of opportunities for action yet left in the battle here. The Canadians need to get a move on. So let's jump in now with the Germans' turn. The Germans don't really have anything to do in the pre-turn here except ready Sergeant Dulles. They could drop this clear terrain down, but there's no real place beneficial to drop it down, so they're just going to hold on to that for right now. This stone building over here for this Canadian squad to stumble onto was a huge help, because it's going to be really hard for this squad firing without its machine gun to hit this infantry squad inside the stone building. That's just tough. So that the defensive value of 4 is huge. They can get this squad back on action. That could be really trouble for the Germans right here. But I think what we're going to do then is we have a ready card here for the Germans, and we're going to have this squad try to fix their machine gun again. Now, the ready action, they need a 5 or a 6 on this die roll to pull it up to be successful. So let's see if they can fix their machine gun. They get a 6. Excellent work for the German second line squad, who continues to exceed expectations. The machine gun is back in action. Lastly, we're going to burn through another card here, which is this movement and wind card. We'll take that one out. They're not really going to go anyplace. So we'll take the movement and wind card out, and we'll expend Sergeant Dulles to remove this fatigue from the second line squad. That's the end of the German turn. Let's go to the Allied turn now. We've got to draw back up cards. So we're going to draw up 2 cards for the Germans. They get a melee card, which they're probably not going to use, and then they get a cover card, which is interesting. We'll probably get them to use that at some point. So let's go now to the Canadians' turn. So the Canadians really don't have anything to do in terms of the pre-turn execution and upkeep phase. This squad really can't do anything as we lean into their movement phase. We're going to try to fire again. I keep thinking that if they can hit with this Piat, it's really going to cause problems for the Germans. And we're going to try to fire one more time, and then I think with the next strategy would be to let's see if we can find better terrain with our recon card to avoid this stream, and then push forward to really try to kind of perhaps force some melee or something like that. So with that in mind, we're going to have the Canadians play this unit action card in their turn, and they are going to fire again with the Piat and the infantry squad. We're getting this to be a familiar pattern right now. The Piat needs a 5 to be able to hit the farmhouse with Sergeant Tremblay's help. First one, it's a 5. It's going to miss, isn't it? I mean, a 5's a tough shot on 2 dice. 7. So once again, the Piat goes whistling over the house. The infantry squad's going to open up fire. They have a -1, so it's just their number. They need something like a 6 or something like that. For the 3rd time in a row, they get a 4. Now this could still be effective, right? It's 4, and the Germans here have a +2 on this, so Germans pick up a 2 + 2 is a 4. It's exactly what they needed, so they match it. Once again, the Germans withstand the fire. This is just tough for the Canadians. They don't have a lot of firepower, and that Piat isn't very accurate, unfortunately. That moves them up to fatigue level 2 because they fired again. We're going to have Sergeant Tremblay here let's use this ready card. He's going to expend that ready card to spend his action here, and he can then use the ready fatigue, his ready ability, to reduce the previous fatigue on the infantry squad and kind of keep them action ready. One quick aside, at the end of the turn here, I drew up the Canadians to full cards. They got a rally card, which is going to help that unit in the stone building, and they got a movement and recon card, which can help them kind of clear up some of their issues on the other parts of the board here. So 2 good draws for the Canadians. So there's no real, Sergeant Dulles should have been spent, I think, in that last turn. He is now ready to go. So we're going to have the Germans fire. That's their best action right here. We'll use this unit action card to fire. So that means they combine the machine gun and the squad into one fire attack on the Canadian infantry here in the open, shooting over a little bit of a tricky stream. This actually could pay off pretty well for the Germans here. So let's figure out our attack. So the Germans firing now on the Canadians here in the open. They get a 3. The only modifier is a -1 because they're firing over degrading terrain. So it's going to be 2 plus this number right here, which gives them a 2 plus a 3, which is a 5. Actually, that could be pretty effective here against Sergeant Trembley's squad in the open here. The defensive modifiers for the Canadians, they don't have a cover action they can play. They're spotted and the clear terrain is 0. They actually get no modifiers on this. So this is a pretty effective shot now that the machine gun is back in action for the Germans here. They get a 2. That isn't nearly as good enough. So the Canadians are going to have to perform a damage check. And the modifier was 5 minus 2, which gives us a 3. So let's do Sergeant Tremblay first on his damage check. It's a +3 damage check. Now he needs a 6 or less on this to pass it. He gets a 6 plus 3 is a 9. Sergeant Tremblay does not pass it, and the Germans have shaken up Sergeant Tremblay. Let's go now to the infantry squad. Same thing, and they need a 5 to be able to pass. So this could be even worse for them. They get a 1. A 1 plus a 3 is a 4. They pass their check. So Sergeant Tremblay cracks under pressure, but our infantry squad holds tight. Germans firing again. We're going to drop a fatigue down on them. And now it's Sergeant Dulles could do a cover an action card here to get another terrain marker. I think he's just going to use it because it's going to help burn up time, and it will help kind of remove burn up time, and another terrain card could be helpful here. So he's going to burn through this one to perform a leader action here, which is going to be pick 2 terrain and then keep 1. So let us see what we get here. He gets clear and clear. So that's an easy decision. Now they have 3 terrain cards. I think that's the maximum you can have. So he really can't do that anymore. I think he would have to discard one if he did that. So a tough turn there for the Canadians. They get a little bit shaken here. It's Sergeant Tremblay riddled by machine gun fire. He drops underground, has kind of lost his composure. Infantry squad's still okay. What will the Canadians do? Before we get there, though, we have to draw the Germans up to action. They get an assault and a fire card. Both of those moderately useful because they can use them as firing, which sounds like that's going to be a lot of what they're doing. Okay, so let's go to the Canadians now. One thing that I forgot to do in the last turn was when this infantry squad was doing their damage check, they drew a 1. And when you draw a 1 on your damage check, you have the opportunity to generate a hero. And how we do that is we pull one more card. If this card is a 4 or 4 through 6, then the infantry squad has a hero arise in the battle. We get a 5. So this is good for the Canadians. Let's now generate that hero. So how we grade a hero is we have a number of markers here, and we kind of blindly pick one, drop it on the squad, and that gives it an extra action that's completely free. So we will do that now. We get a rally -1 marker. Okay, I suppose that's good, but nobody's shaken, and I don't think we can use it on the leader here. I think we can only use it on its own unit here. So perhaps not the best hero ability to get, but we'll see how this goes. Perhaps depends on what happens with the machine gun fire next round, I suppose. Alrighty, and now we can go to the Canadians' turn, but I do want to call attention to the fact here that our action deck is getting dry here. It is probably 20 or so cards left. So Canadians really got to move here. And I think what we're going to need to try to do is to see if we can get this unit in action. So we are going to have them expend our rally card here, and then we're going to try to have this infantry squad rally. Now to rally, they have to do a 2-die check against this morale value and have to be equal to it or less, which is a 5. That might seem a little bit hopeless, a little bit not optimistic. However, because they're in this stone building, that gives them a 2-die roll benefit, a -2. So they will need this result -2 and get 5 or less. We get a 3. Oh, it's going to be close. And a 3. Excellent. So this infantry squad rallies, and they will be able to act in the next turn. This brings us back into action with these units here. Oh, also I should have readied Sergeant Tromley at the beginning of the turn there, but he is shaken and can't really do anything until he can rally. So we could have used the rally card on him, but I want to get this unit in action here. And with that, that brings us to the end of the Canadians' turn here. That was relatively quick, but they're setting themselves up pretty nicely for the next turn, I think. We will draw up a new card to get them to 5 cards. We get a sniper card. This could be an interesting play on the next turn as well. All right, let's go to the Germans' turn. I think the Germans' advantage here. Thinking about this going forward, one of the options for these Canadian units would be to storm the farmhouse and try to do melee, but it's going to be a tough attack because of the fact that they'd be defending in the farmhouse. It's going to be about 1 against 2 odds, roughly, as things stand right now. So it really is kind of imperative on the Canadians to kind of shake up these units first, or at least kind of put some kind of damage on them before they try to go in, which is about how much time they're going to have left. But that's getting ahead of ourselves. The reason I mention that is because I think it determines what the Germans want to do, whether they want to try to fire on this unit here or try to fire down here on the infantry squad. And I think they're going to kind of keep pouring on the fire here, because if they can shake up Sergeant Tromley again, they'll knock him out of action. So Germans up, Sergeant Dulles gets readied, and once again, we're going to have the German infantry squad and machine gun open fire on these Canadians in the clear here. We probably really should have taken care of kind of getting them out of the clear, to be totally honest. So relatively straightforward. Again, like we've done before, it's an attack fire of 3, -1 because it's going over degrading terrain, plus this modifier here. Oh, they get a 1. Again, this machine gun's been terrible. That means the machine gun could break down on this one too. So we got to check for that. On a 1 or a 2, the machine gun breaks, and it does. It breaks again. God, they didn't do a good job fixing it. This could change things now, because with a broken machine gun, it's going to be easier for the Canadians to storm the farmhouse. It might be time to send them in action, but let us first resolve the rest of this attack. So we have 1 + 3 -1 gives them a, what is it? Yeah, 3 -1 is 2, +1 is a 3 on that attack. Not very good. So the morale checks here, Sergeant Tremblay has to pass this. Our infantry squad has to pass this. They have a 3, and their only modifier, they have no modifiers. They get a 5. So the Canadians successfully defend against this fire attack and don't get any further casualties here. And that actually has quite a bit of consequences now with the machine gun broken again. All right, so we go now. Could we have Sergeant Dulles do anything? They fired, so they're at fatigue 2. Once again here, too, we're going to have Sergeant Dulles expend an action to take off a fatigue, but I forgot to play the firing card. So I'm going to play that firing card, and then we'll have Sergeant Dulles expend this. We'll have him expend the assault card here to basically take away the previous fatigue off this infantry unit and keep them up and firing. Although the machine gun breaking again, they don't really have a ready card. They need to draw one now to get that machine gun back up into action here. They get a reinforcements card and a ready card. Perfect. So they can try to fix the machine gun next turn, but first we go to the Canadians act. Canadians have a lot of options here. We could go straight in melee, but I think even with this, it'd be nice to tilt the odds a little bit more in our favor, and I think the Germans are going to struggle to repair that machine gun. I don't want to fire down here because without the shaken modifier, the Piat's not going to be really effective, and this firepower isn't very much. So we're going to do 1 round of fire with this infantry squad and the Bren. Hold up here in the stone building, and then if that doesn't work, or even if it does work, I think the next turn it's going to be imperative that the Canadians do a melee attack into the farmhouse here to see if they can pull out the win. So what we're going to do then is we're going to have the Canadians first up fire on the farmhouse here, and we have a straight up fire card that we can use right here. So we'll pull this one out and use that one. And now it's time to calculate the attack here. This is a firepower of 2, which is basically there, but they are firing at range 1, and there's a +1 modifier for firing at range 1, and I think that's the only modifier that applies in this case. Yeah, so that's the only modifier. So it's 2 + 1 is a 3, and their attack power is basically going to be the die roll plus the 3 here, so could lead if they get a good shot here. Oh my goodness, they get a 1. I think I've pulled one for so many fire attacks. First up, we have to draw to see if the Bren breaks down. It would break on a 1 or a 2. It does not break, so small favors there. But they get a 1 plus a 3 is a 4 for their fire attack. Not super promising. And one thing I wanted to do as the Germans too, they're going to play this cover card, which gives them an extra -2 on this. I was going to do that, and I just forgot to include it in the order there. So they're going to play the -2 here. They were going to do that anyway. Normally you have to declare it before you resolve the die roll, but we're just going to allow that this time. They're in the farmhouse, so it's -2. They're not spotted. They are spotted, so it's -2 and -2 to this. So -4 for their check here. So they're safe no matter what, right? So they get a 4 minus a 4 is a, 4 plus 4 is an 8, which makes them safe. So it does not work for the Canadians to fire once again. God, that one. Canadians, neither side really firing all that well, but Canadians really struggling here. Now with that I think ends the Canadian turn. They are going to draw back up here. They get a movement card, which doesn't really help too often here at this point for the Canadians. All right, so now we go to the Germans' turn here. Sergeant Dulles will be readied. And the question is, what do we want to have them do? Do we want to have them try to fix that machine gun? I think we actually are. We can do a couple of things here. We have a perfect card for it. We have a ready card and a unit action card. So what we're going to try to do is to fix with the ready card, we're going to try to fix the machine gun. They need a 5 or a 6 to fix it, and they get a 1. So they fail at fixing the machine gun. But they can use the unit action part of that now to activate the second line squad and have them fire once again down here on Sergeant Tromley. Now their firepower is no longer a 3, it's only a 1. And they're firing over degrading terrain, which is a 1 minus 1. So it's basically a 0 plus whatever this is. They get a 4, which isn't all that bad. So Sergeant Trumlin and the infantry squad need to survive this attack. Again, there's no defensive modifiers here, so they have to equal or better a 4 in order to not suffer damage. Oof. They get a 1, which is deadly for them, perhaps. That will result in a +3 damage check. Sergeant Tromley, already wounded, his life on the line. He needs this number +3. Has to be 6 or less. He gets a 4. 4 plus 3 is 7. Sergeant Tromley fails his damage check and he drops to the ground. Sergeant Tromley has been killed. The Canadian attack starts to go in disarray. The infantry squad likewise needs a +3 damage check. They get a 3. Also missing by 1 because 3 plus 3 is 6, greater than 5. So they go to shaken status. Oh, this has been some really effective fire here by the German infantry squad here. So with that being done, Sergeant Tromley drops to the ground, the infantry squad shaken. These troops have finally been rattled here in the clear. The Germans, Sergeant Dulles will activate a card here. He'll play this card, this reinforcements card, as a movement card. And with that, he is going to remove the fatigue that would have been on there before from the Germans, and so they go back and they stay at a 1. So Sergeant Dulles now still has been spent, but Germans extracting the first casualties of the battle here late. Now it's the Canadians' turn. All right, the Canadians are up. Time is ticking down. There are not many cards left in the deck, but I think we have just enough to pull this off. Canadians are going to have to go to desperation phase. They're going for full melee. So we pull out the melee token. This will be executed in the next turn. They're going to drop that down there. Now I also remember they fired in the last turn too, so their fatigue was at 1. This is going to expand, kind of increase actually I think what happens is they're going to be spent at the end of the melee because they're moving sideways anyway, but their fatigue is at 1, so that leaves that there from that last time that they fired. So now we have the melee set up. The Canadians are not going to do anything else. They're just going to draw up to their final one here, which gives them a ready and a rally card, which is helpful. We can, however, we could have this infantry squad rally, but I don't want to burn through the cards because I want to make sure there's enough for one more turn for them. So they're just going to kind of hunker down and wait for this to happen and play out. And now we go to the German turn. Sergeant Dulles is readied at the start of the German turn. Now, if we were playing this competitively, to be fair here, what we could do with the Germans, because there are 5 cards left, we could have them do a complete, once a turn, you can basically flush your deck and get rid of all 5 cards and replace them, and that would end the scenario. But I want to kind of, for the sake of the narrative and for the sake of completing this, I want to have the melee carry out. So we're going to have Sergeant Dolis and his squad here. They're going to fire on the Canadian infantry while they're trying to advance here on the melee. So let's figure out that attack and execute that first. So Sergeant Dolis's squad here, they have a firepower of 1. At a range of 1, they get a +1 bonus to it. And because the infantry squad is moving, there's an additional +1. So it is +2 to their attack here. With a base firing of 1, they get a 1 + 2 is 3 + 5 is 8. Ooh, this is going to be tough here. Now, our Canadian defenders in this melee attack here, they are moving forward in melee. I believe they still get the benefit here of the stone building. It's just that +1. I might be incorrect. I couldn't find it in the rules, but we're going to assume that they still do. So they get this +4 for their defense, and that's the only factors that they have here. They get a 2 + 4 is a 6. So they have to execute a morale damage check on it is an 8 to a 6, a +2. They get a 4 + 2 is a 6. They are shaken as they come in. Now they're still going to execute this melee, but it's going to be less likely that they have any sort of success here. So there is the actions right here. Now the German squad's going to draw up to this. We could have Sergeant Dolis now that burn a card out, which would end the scenario, but we're going to let the melee attack kind of go out here. So there's actually 1 card left in the deck, which means that the melee attack is going to start and then we're going to let it finish. So we're kind of being a little bit permissive here to let the melee go, but I want to see if this squad can take the farmhouse on the final action of the battle. Actually, I am going to allow Sergeant Dolis to execute, kind of discard a card here to perform the fatigue upgrade there. And technically this scenario ended, but we're going to have the melee, we're going to let the melee execute here just for the sake of the narrative and things like that. By the technical aspect of the rules, the game ends when the last card of the deck is drawn, but we are going to let this melee attack resolve itself to determine final victory here. All right, so for the melee phase, everybody's into the farmhouse now, and it is one last frantic battle for the farmhouse. Now, technically, too, they don't have the control factors to be able to take this farmhouse because they don't have that Piat, which would allow to get the control. But this is for kind of for the sake of the story here. We'll let this play out. So how it's going to work with the melee. This is we're going to figure out the attack melee factors, and then we'll figure out the defensive melee factors second. Basically, it's your firepower, and for each one of firepower, you get 1d6. So the Canadians have the Bren, and they have their infantry squad, which gives them a 2. There are no other modifiers for them, so they just basically get those 2 die rolls that are going to be used in melee. And how this is going to work, we're going to do a number of die rolls and to see how many hits there are. Now, the Germans defending, they get their firepower, which is a 1. They're defending in blocking terrain, so they get a +2 more die rolls, so they get 3. So the Canadians have 2, the Germans so far have 3, and the attacking unit is shaken, so they get another one, which gives them 4. Their leader doesn't help them out there, and that's it. The Canadians are going to pull 2 d6s. The Germans are going to pull 1 + 2 + 1 more for the shaken. They're going to pull 4, and this is going to determine how many hits are taken on the units. If the Canadians suffer 1 hit, this squad is actually reduced to half strength, and then it has to have 2 hits would wipe them out. So let's see what happens. And how we get them on a hits here, basically straight up. You pull the cards, and if it's a 4, 5, or 6, you get 1 hit. So we will pull the 2 Canadians, their attacking hits first, to see how many hits they get. They get a 6, so they get 1 hit. That's good for the Canadians. And they get a 1, so they get 1 hit on the Germans. Now we're going to pull the 4 cards for the Germans. I just have to reshuffle the deck. All right, so I've got the 4 cards for the Germans. See how many hits they get on the Canadians. The first one is a hit, d6. So the second line squad hits the Canadian infantry squad. A 4 is a second hit, and that essentially ends it here. 5, a third hit. Oh, the Germans putting on a show here for melee, and a 4th hit, all 4 hits. So how we execute this now is basically we have to distribute the hits evenly over the units, so we'll walk through that now. So first we'll do the Canadians who had 1 hit. It can be distributed either on the unit or the leader. We will just have the Sergeant Dolus be shaken here, that's fine. And then the Germans got 4 hits on the Canadians. So the first hit here, let me move this stuff off. The first hit reduces it, it's already shaken, so the first hit reduces it to a 2nd line squad. And then the second hit eliminates the squad, and with it goes the Bren machine gun and all their vestiges of support here, shaken and stuff. So at the end of the day, the Germans hold the farmhouse, fighting off a Canadian squad in a frantic melee in the last waning hours of sunlight here. This infantry squad, we can assume, shaken and wounded with a dead leader, kind of floats back down to their lines behind Juno Beach and reports that the farmhouse is occupied by at least a platoon level of Germans. Canadians not having a lot of effectiveness here on this battlefield as we kind of clean things up a little bit. They just really struggled to get any good shots. The Piat really couldn't hit anything. Infantry squad just quite couldn't do anything. Then we started taking casualties down here. Kind of lots of second thoughts, I think, about how we might have handled the Canadians more effectively. Germans kind of hold up in that defensive position. Didn't really hit anything at the beginning, but boy, they really started to lay on the fire at the end. So kudos to Sergeant Dolus and the 2nd line squad. Sergeant Dolus gets wounded at the end, but they hold on to the farmhouse behind Juno Beach, pulling out the victory. Let me know what you think down below. Strategy ideas, again, I'm very much learning the game, so kind of still making mistakes every once in a while, and still strategy-wise, I have a lot to learn, I think. But hope you've enjoyed the playthrough. This has been great fun to do. I'll be back in a few days with a full review of the game, talking about this, and I also want to talk a little bit about the solo bot system, because we played this 2-player solo, but there is a solo bot system here. And again, just a reminder as well that although this took a while to create the video for, I'd estimate the video is probably about 3 times longer than the actual gameplay. So this probably would have been about a 30 to 45 minute kind of game or battle to play out if we weren't doing it on video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great day.